Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Transition Place. It is a special edition of this love thing. I know it's not the first Monday, but this subject is so hot and this guest is so hard to get that when he is available, we have to schedule him when his schedule allows. He's none other than Dr. Kenneth Jones. And if I were to go through his resume, it would take so much time. But listen to me. Today, we're going to talk about something that is so very valuable for all of you who are with us right now in the live audience. And even if you see this in the playback, you want to begin to gather your family and friends right now. You want to go ahead and start sharing your stream right now. We're going to get into this conversation in just a few minutes. We're going to be talking about the narcissist. We're going to be talking about toxic relationships. For any of you who have ever been in a toxic relationship, whether it was with or without the narcissist, you understand the damage that a toxic relationship can cause. You understand the deep-seated hurt and pain that it can cause and the time that it takes to recover and heal. You know, we often say that hurt people, and that is a truism. And when you have been deeply hurt, if you are not careful, whether consciously or subconsciously, we end up repeating the cycle. And so one of the reasons that we've asked Dr. Jones to come and help us tonight is that, number one, we want to identify what a toxic relationship is. And if you're anything like me, I didn't realize what a narcissist was until I was in my 40s. And I'm almost ashamed to say it, but it just was not something that was introduced to even my vocabulary as a young person. I had heard it here and there, but because it was not a part of my environment, I didn't think there was a reason for me to even understand what it was. It wasn't until after I got out of the relationship with that type of personality that I even understood what it was and what I was into. And so hopefully tonight, for those of you who have been in that type of relationship, we're going to help to identify some things that maybe will help you heal, help you to understand. For those of you who have never been in that type of relationship, first of all, you need to tell God thank you. And hopefully we'll talk about some things today that will help you avoid that type of relationship. Because if you have not yet been in that type of relationship, you don't want to be. That is not something that you want to do. All right. So we got Dr. Jones with us. We're going to bring him here in just a minute. But I want to tell you, we're live right now on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram. So wherever you're catching us, whether you're in the live feed or whether you're in the playback, make sure you send that link to somebody. We want everybody who can and will to be a part of this audience. Of course, you know, if you're on Facebook, you can tag. Let somebody know that we're here, and we don't want to waste this opportunity with Dr. Jones. Now, this is going to be part one. He's going to come back with us on the first Monday in February, and we're going to do part two. We're going to come. This is part one because we got to pull it out today, and then in part two, we're going to show you how to get this thing together and go forward from with the fallout from dealing with all this craziness. So we're going to say welcome to Dr. Kenneth Jones, sir. We thank God for you. I'm going to tell the people just a little bit about yourself. For those who don't know Dr. Jones, he is a pastor in Woodbridge, Virginia. He's a local chaplain. He's a licensed clinical social worker. Did I get that right?
I am I have a PhD in biblical counseling.
Okay, there we go.
And I have my master's in community counseling as well.
All right.
I have a bachelor of social work. I'm a little bit overeducated, they say.
As you can see, this man is well credentialed, well educated, and well qualified to give us what we need. Usually when Tisha and I are doing this, I often tell people, Dr. Jones, I said, listen, Tisha and I are not clinicians. What we do is we share with our audience our experience, and we tell them now we are saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost and anointed, and we share that. But today we have a subject matter expert with us. And for a long time, I've been saying, let the experts be the experts in the field of their expertise. And when we do that, usually we have some success. So welcome, Dr. Jones. Thank you so much for saying yes to the invitation that we've been talking about this about a year and a half, and we were finally able to get it together. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, like you said, I'm a little bit educated, but I'm not also speaking on this topic not only as a counselor, not only as a pastor, hey, but also as a victim. You
There you
know,
go.
I've been a victim of a toxic relationship. But of course, when you think of toxic, what do you think of? When you think of something that's poisonous, right?
Right.
In other words, something that's poison can cause deliberate, death or injury. It could be detrimental to, your good health. Something that's flammable is toxic too. So
Right.
flammable is something that's combustible. And one of the things about being in a narcissistic relationship or a toxic relationship, boy, things can be combustible really quick. Things can go up in flame really good, really quick. And then the other thing is, it could be gases.
Mm.
It's odorless. Some
Mm.
gas are odorless. You don't know until it hits you. You remember in the army when you get ready to go to that chemical room and you
Oh
look at
yes.
it, from the outside. I said, well, I don't see no smoke. I don't see nothing. In the air. It looks good until you go in and you take off that mask. And the
Right.
next you bent over because now you're choking. And so these are some of the characteristics of a toxic uh, relationship. And before we go there, I want to know I want to kind of say what God calls a toxic relationship.
Okay.
When we
I'm
think of
all ears.
what's that?
I'm all ears.
Well, when you think about a toxic relationship, you think about something like I said, that's not good. That can
Mhm.
also impact you spiritually, mentally, and physically. And the Bible says in 3 John 1:2, I wish above all things that thou
Mm.
prosper and be in health.
Mm.
God wants us to prosper emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, even as thy soul prosper. And I
That's right.
always tell people, you cannot prosper above the ability of your soul. But
Amen.
if something hindering you, and usually that's one of the problems with a narcissistic or a toxic relationship, is that it's dangerous to your spirit. It's dangerous to your mind and mentally and emotionally. Also, it can be dangerous to you physically. And in the second part, we talk next week. I want to talk about that because it's a shame that the church would encourage people, to stay in a toxic relationship. But we can't talk about it this week. We're going to talk about it next week. But if you're in a healthy relationship when there's mutual respect for one another, God has a design. God's design is in Ephesians when he talks about husband love your wife.
Mm.
If the husband loves his wife, he gives himself for her. Then the wife responds with respect.
Mm.
She respects her husband. So that's a mutual submission. That's a mutual love and mutual respect that take place. Then the Bible says, fathers love your children. Children,
Amen.
obey your parents. See, God's design is there to make it work in any type of relationship. The problem is today that many of us operate out of desires rather than
Mm.
God's design. And that's what we're coming. So a healthy relationship is when we communicate with one another. We're in agreement with one another most times. We're working together toward a common purpose. And we create an environment where they're sharing, they're participating, that's comfort. So when we think of a healthy relationship, we should think of closeness and availability. We should think about an investment, of mutual and reciprocating, feelings and emotion, trust, honor, expectations, and experiences. All these things are important when we think about relationship.
Let me ask this, and everything you're saying, I 100% agree with. Of course, I'm at this stage of my life, this level of natural and spiritual maturity. But those who we really want to catch are the ones who haven't already plunged into the deep, into a toxic relationship, especially with a narcissist. What is it that we can do as parents and grandparents with our young teenagers and preteens and young adults maybe something that our parents or grandparents may have missed because maybe they didn't know how to model it. Maybe they didn't know how to teach it. You in your own personal walk with being a victim of it and your profession of being a counselor and even as being a pastor, being responsible for souls and all of that journey, what would you say would be something that we could start teaching very early or start modeling very early to make sure that our young people do understand healthy relationship versus toxic relationship in a way that we teach it and demonstrate it in a very intentional way?
Well, the first thing I would tell as a parent that we had to show what a healthy relationship is. Many of us grew up with our parents. We watched our parents and our relatives. I grew up in the South, down Louisiana. I've seen a lot of stuff. I'm pretty sure most people have seen it within their parents. And many of us kind of go into our relationship based on what we've seen in their relationship.
Mm.
The Bible says, "Mark the perfect man."
Mm.
So it's also important that for parents, be the example. That means you got to come correct.
Mm.
Also, help our children identify what a toxic relationship is. One of the things that people always get on you about when you come out of a toxic relationship, they always tell you, "Oh, you should have seen that coming." Not necessarily. You don't always see it coming. One of the things about the narcissist is related to the spirit of Python. When you
Mm.
go to Acts chapter 16, it talks about the spirit of Python. Well, Python is a big snake. It falls out of the tree. In other words, you don't see it until it falls on you.
Mm.
And then it begins to squeeze. Every time you breathe, it squeezes until it suffocates you. And
Mm.
then swallows you. And then swallows you. So you may not be able to see. So as parents, we have to begin to teach and train. The things that we're seeing on media and our kids are seeing on media, and the average, teenager spend 13 hours a day on media. Most of that relationship mindset is narcissistic. And so you become kind of conditioned to it, or you adapt that behavior that you see. So as parents, we need to model it. As grandparents, and realize sometimes this narcissism is generational. And we need to be praying and try to cut off that generational curse or generational lineage before it comes to our children.
Mm.
So you can't, you got to be able to recognize it.
Mm. Well, one thing I will say for anybody in our audience, if you don't know what a narcissist is, go get a dictionary. Start there so you can look it up. You'd be surprised, or you can find out on YouTube for free. That was the beginning of my understanding. I ran across a video. I wasn't even looking for it, and I saw something. I was like, "Oh my God, this lady just described everything I just went through." And then I started intentionally looking at stuff. I got a whole education, and it helped me to make sense that the relationship had already been done, but I was still going through the healing process. And that intentional research helped me to heal because I was able to understand what it was that I went through. And then once I had understanding, I was able to go back and help my children because, of course, they were part of going through it also. I went through it, they went through it. Of course, we saw different sides of it, but toxic is toxic. And so we can't go back and change what has already happened, but we can glean from it. And I thank you for saying that, Dr. Jones. We have to be the example. Now, for those of us who didn't know, what would you say for those who are saying, listen, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know how to be the example for that. I don't have any way to compare it. I don't have what it takes to be the example. What would be the next best step that you
Well,
would say?
this is where counseling comes in. This is where, sitting your child down or sitting down together as a family and go through this. Sometimes I do genograms with families, and we go back 2 different generations, and you can see certain toxic behavior 2 generations back. And have that discussion maybe with someone that's knowledgeable, like a counselor or someone that, who may have gone through. It's kind of good because you really don't know also that the children are impacted, through the narcissistic relationship. And they're gravely impacted. I've counseled many families and I, it's the children also that are impacted as well. So the
It's
key,
amazing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
so the key is, Brother Carl, is learning how to recognize it. And so many times that our parents, and many times the church, or many times teachers like this gives us an opportunity to recognize, what does a toxic relationship look like? Because some things we see on TV that really are toxic, but we make jokes about it. It may be on a comedy, it may be on a whole bunch of other things on Facebook and on YouTube and Instagram. I've been watching these videos and I've been listening to these people, and I've been wondering to myself, I wonder, do they realize that what you thinking here is toxic, and this is making your relationship toxic. Uh,
Mhm.
so you got to understand what a toxic relationship look like. I got a list of some things that about toxic people, and maybe you may recognize some of these. So if you're in a mostly one-sided relationship where there's continual drama, continual gaslighting, or that verbal abuse, where you have fearful and dreadful interaction. I mean, you're just dreading coming home. You're dreading talking to your spouse or your father or your mother. You're dreading these things. Toxic people also, they relish victimhood. In other words, they're always the victim. Even when they do you wrong, they're still the victim. If you find yourself in unhealthy communication, uh, abusive behavior, uh, you may feel manipulated, that someone's always controlling your behavior. And most also, you have inappropriate behavior, attitudes, and action. You have heavy criticism, very demeaning, use of shame and guilt, and making excuses, for you find yourself making excuses for that person to other people, like an aspect of codependency. Well, if you have all these things, you may be in a toxic relationship.
That's amazing. You know, I was well into my adulthood before I even started using that phrase toxic relationship. I guess for me it was either good or bad. But to be quite honest with you, as a young man, I really didn't know how to measure a relationship was good or bad, except for how I felt. My rule to measure was watching my parents. Now, my mother and father had divorced, but when my mother remarried, I saw a good, solid relationship. When my dad remarried, I saw a good, solid relationship. And so that was the measuring stick that I had. Those relationships, even though they were good, they were not perfect. But outside of that, I didn't have the wherewithal to pick up and seek, really, really good examples of marriage. I was not astute enough in Bible study to even consider going to the Bible to pick up those things. So if somebody had said this to me 40 years ago, what you just said, those things to look for, I'm not sure how much it would have penetrated. I really don't know. I don't know if I was prepared for that. And so kind of what I want to do today is hopefully we can break through with people who will come and watch this, say, listen, you want to stay away from this stuff. Let me ask you this. How can somebody identify that toxic person, that narcissist person, when they first started dating? Because one thing that we know, that narcissist person, they are masters of disguise. They
Hmm.
are so good at listening to you and making themselves look exactly like what it is that you want. They prey on vulnerable people, to be quite honest with you. I didn't know anything about it until, of course, like I said, after I had already been through it. So what would you say to somebody to kind of stay away from that type of thing?
And you're right. The narcissist is known as the apex predator.
Mm,
So let me kind of give a little background too as well. A narcissist come from the Greek word narcissus. Narcissus was a Greek god,
mm.
and he loved himself so much that he saw his reflection in the water, and he couldn't bear away from that reflection. So he starved. He died of thirst and starvation, and so that's how strong that spirit is. But part of the thing is, like I said, you have to understand certain traits. Usually, the narcissist will start off love bombing you. Oh, they make you feel so important. They make you feel, so special. So, using that relationship, you may see this person that's really showing a lot of love for you and really pouring out the love for you. And that's what you'll see. Usually in public, the narcissist definitely can put on a show. He'll hold your hand and put his arm around your waist. And I mean, he makes you feel so special for a while. But then what happens later on, they get tired of you. And then you start seeing where that person begin to devalue you.
Mm.
You're not as important anymore. You're not stimulating them anymore. Now they begin to complain about certain things that you're doing. They don't want you to talk to certain people because they always got to isolate you and separate you from any other influence. So when you start seeing things like that, when he or she begin to complain and say things about you, or if you try to talk to them about something, they gaslight you, make it seem like it's all your fault and not theirs. These are some of the early warning signs that you should be looking for. And so that's like the first part of the relationship. You may see that love bombing, then they got to they devalue you, then they want to discard you after a while.
I'm so glad you're saying that, because everything that you're saying is textbook of what happened to me and so many other people who I've talked to who have been in that type of relationship. But because nobody explained it to us, I remember when it started happening to me, I kept questioning myself, like, I know I'm not crazy, right? You keep asking yourself that question. I know I'm not crazy. Did this joker just do this? How did I come to her, approaching her about something that I don't like, and she ended up turning around on me? So I kept asking myself and doubting myself. They're very good at making you doubt yourself.
Oh yeah, that's
And I'm a person, I have a lot of self-confidence, but they are masters at tearing that down bit by bit by bit. And that part you said about isolating you, oh man, they are masters at it. I just wish that I had somebody who was in my ear who understood it, who could really explain it to me. And I try to do that now. When I see it, I try to listen. This is what's going on. The hurtful thing is you can see it and you can help a person identify it. But if they don't want to listen, only thing you can do is watch them go through it, knowing that they're going to hurt. And let me tell you, a toxic relationship, some people don't survive it. And it's sad. You get so many people are up in age who got hurt at a very young age and never want to try relationships again. You get people who take themselves out by way of suicide. You get people who suffer serious mental defect, depression, all kind of things. And I'm sure, Dr. Jones, you see these cases. How are you able to help a person who has been through this type of relationship and who has been really used and abused and dealt with, mistreated by these type of persons? How does a counselor help them to pick themselves up and move on from that kind of hurt?
Well, one of the things that we have to do is have to recognize it. Some people don't recognize it. And let me bring that point up too as well, because sometimes our friends and other people who judge us, they're quick to say, well, you should have known. You should have seen this coming. You're supposed to be so educated, or you're supposed to realize that, even though the narcissist has his or her own objective, you may come into the relationship, based on the honest, on what was told to you, based on what was presented to you. You couldn't come into the relationship, meaning full well to do the right thing, in that relationship. And the person that was presented before you, well, you may see this. I mean, the person that I met came with papers, supposed to be a minister, recommended to me by another minister. This person, went to church and served in the church and did a lot, good things in the church. So when I came into this relationship, I came to the relationship thinking, hey, this is a good person. This person can also help me in my ministry. This person can be a part of my life, provide a companion. I mean, I came to the relationship, with a good mindset. And that's why, but a lot of times you just don't see it. And so by the time you go through the ringer, you're burnt out. You're worn out. You could be hurt emotionally and mentally and confused. So as counselors, one of the first things we have to do is help people to recognize, hey, most people don't know. And so you got to tell them, hey, this is a toxic relationship. And I know you want to keep this relationship, but it may be too toxic that it's no longer tenable. And
Right.
we talk about the second part about the church, because a lot of times the narcissist love the church because he can use the church to keep that person in place. Because the first thing they're going to tell you when you say, I don't know if I can take this anymore, they're going to tell you, God hate divorce.
Yep.
That's the first thing they're going to tell you. So they use the church, as an anchor, as a bridge for them. And they are church people. They just don't believe. So.
Something that really helped me in my healing. My heart was broken because I loved this person so deeply. And when it all started to fall apart, when the truth started to come out, because what happens is when that thing starts to unravel and you realize the depth of the lies that have been told to you, it's almost like you never knew the person you were with, right? The person you shared your life with, that you shared your bed with, that you shared property with. It's like you never knew them. And when I came to understand that I didn't love her, I loved the portrait that she painted of her. If I had known her, I would have never fallen in love with her. I couldn't have.
Yeah.
But the portrait that she painted of her is what I fell in love with. And that's what I had a relationship with. She never wanted me to know her. Now, anybody who has been through this, what I'm saying is making perfect sense. If you haven't been through it yet, tell God thank you. Because you rather not. But listen to what we're saying, because this will help you. Remember, there's a whole lot of tests that the toxic person or the narcissist will pass. They are tremendous fakers. But the one test that they continuously fail is the test of time. So as you're getting to know a person in a relationship, don't let anybody rush you into commitment. That's another trick that they use. Let's run fast. No, you have to run fast. Run slowly. Get to know their families. One of the tricks they'll tell you is they don't have a lot of friends. They don't get along with their family. You know what that is? That's the cover, so you don't go back and talk to people that they've already hurt. I had to learn that the hard way.
But they'll
Go ahead, sir. Huh?
Keep that in mind. They'll get in your family.
Yep.
Because they got to control the narrative, so they'll get all into your family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you may not know anything about their family. You're right.
That's right. I'm telling you from now. He has the credentials. I got the burn marks.
Let me give you a biblical. Somebody said, "Well, what's a scriptural thing?" Let me give you a scriptural thing for this. If you go to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1-7, it talks about the kind of persons that we're going to be experiencing in these last days. If you mind, I'm going to read it. It says, "But realize that in the last days, difficult times will come. For men," when we talk about men and women inclusive, "for men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossip, without self-control, brutal haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power. Avoid such men as these." So we see to the scriptures, these are the same characteristics, of what a narcissist would be, or someone in a toxic relationship. They're going to be arrogant. They don't have any empathy for you. You can say, "Hey, I got to run over today." Well, you should have stayed off the street. They don't have, they are bred too. Narcissists are bred. In other words, they are created. They didn't just come to be that way. Most narcissists suffer from fear of rejection and fear of abandonment. A lot of times, if you look and see the life of a narcissist, you may find out that one of the parents may have left them. They didn't get enough love in their family. So the narcissist creates an environment for himself or herself to make sure that they always have someone to be under them, to look after them, they can control, they can manipulate. They got to have this image within the neighborhood. I got a family, I got children. They have to create this atmosphere because most of the time they also are acting out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Don't realize that. That's why they got to bring fear to you because they got to manipulate you. That's why they also have to isolate you from your friends so you won't have any other influences.
It is crazy. And like I said, they are master manipulators. Remember what the scripture said about the enemy, that he disguises himself as angel of light. So remember, if the toxic person or that narcissist presented themselves as a bad choice, you wouldn't make that. But they present themselves as a good choice. So we have to be, harmless as the dove, but wise as the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time in these relationships. Take your time to get to know a person. See them in different environments with different people. And one of the greatest things you'll ever do, get to know their family, get to know their background, get to know some people who have known them all of their life. Don't go for their story. They don't have no friends. They don't have contact with nobody from their past. That's dangerous.
That is.
That's dangerous.
And
Don't do that.
I'm glad you're bringing that up too, because Brother most people don't think about that their relationship, where they come from. Even in a situation experience I had, I knew very little about her background. Very little about her family. She had told me that she cut her family off because they didn't, they had issues and they didn't respect her, and she made herself the victim, and I felt sorry for her, because I thought, hey, well, this is why the parents not, the family members are not around because what she's done, and I mean what they done to her, and so I mean I fell for it, because that's what was told to me,
Right.
and I went into that relationship, eyes open, but like we said in the military, I left my left flank, unguarded, you know. So you gotta watch that left flank, and that's what you depend upon your spouse for, or that's what you spend upon your friends, or whoever you're in a relationship. They're supposed to be there to help you.
Yes.
But this person definitely did not do that, and it's impacted my children. It impacted a lot of my friends. She cut off all my friends from coming, and this is what many times what they do. They cut you off from everybody. They have to be the number one person.
I'm glad you brought that up. This is one of the things we watch out for. The toxic person has to make themselves a center of attention. They have to be number one. A person that's healthy, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually healthy, they can see themselves in a healthy role, right? I mean, think about it now. When you get involved with a healthy person, they don't have to be your all in all for everything, right? Think about that. But that toxic person, oh man, you got to run everything by them because they have to control the narrative. They want to know everything about you, but you're going to know very little about them. I remember the person who I was in a toxic relationship with. There was a statement I kept making to her. I said, every time it seems like I get close to knowing you, you make another 90-degree turn. I don't know why you keep saying that. That's exactly what was happening. Every time I would get close to really getting to know, she would move again. And it wasn't until it was all the way over until I understood that was the game. Because game is over once we get to know who they really are.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
And that's part of the cycle of abuse. So
yeah, I want you to help me with something here because this is maybe something clinical that you can help me with. I would wonder, after it was over, like, why do they go and spend so much time and effort? Because these are not stupid people. They're smart people. For them to pull off what they pull off, you can't be a dummy. They are so smart and so cunning. Why not use that to build a legitimate business, make some real money? They don't have to suck the life out of people. And why not go build a relationship with somebody just as crazy as they are, and they can be crazy and happy together? Why must they come and suck the life out of people? What is it? What is the psychological damage that is done that makes them do that?
Well, part of it is, it's they have to put themselves above. They can't operate with somebody that that knows them and that keep talk to them at their level. They have to put somebody, because they have a grandiose sense of self-importance, because they got to have attention, and they make everything about themselves. Then they got to find somebody weak enough to, and I wouldn't say necessarily just weak enough. I think somebody who loves them enough to try to accommodate, them and be there for them. And eventually codependency sets in where you also defended them. But they cannot, the game said pure evil. But they cannot, do this on their own. They have to, find something that's weak. You're not going to fight somebody who can beat you up. You're going to fight somebody that you think, you can win most of the time. And so because I have to control, I have to manipulate. I may not be able to do that with you. So I got to find some unsuspecting person that, who really want a relationship and try to make the relationship work. And I use that, to my advantage. And because they lack empathy and they also feel insecure, they can't do it with someone that's like themselves, I guess you could say.
I'm gonna say something, and I'm gonna be transparent, and some people are gonna be surprised that the preacher gonna say this, but see, I'm gonna help somebody here. There were times in that relationship, and I was a preacher then too, when I really had to pull myself off the edge of the cliff, because I thought to myself, this woman is really blessed that she met this version of me. Because the previous version of me probably would have took this joker out. I mean, straight up. And I felt like she knew that. I know how far I can push him because I know he loved the Lord. I know he loved these children. And I'm going to push him just to the edge, and then I'll come back. Is that part of their personality?
Yeah. What they normally do, once they push you to the edge, then they come back and they love bomb you. It's one thing they call hoovering. The hoover back in. So the hoover, they had to suck you back in. They see you running, they got to suck you back in. And because they know when they messed up, they know when they finally went a little bit too far. And because they went too far, wait a minute, I got to keep this slave back on the plantation. So I'm gonna love bomb you. I may apologize to you over and over again, and then I may even tell you, I have I'm dysfunctional, I'm bipolar. These are things they tell you, just so you know I got a problem, and then eventually they say the problem is you. Now, one thing, one of the things I found interesting that usually when they devalue you and they discard you, they may go out and get another relationship. But they still want to keep that relationship that they have with you, for insurance. And so, to me, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to be a narcissist because you always got to be conniving. You always got to be planning. You always got to be, trying to make sure I stay on top. You got to be controlling. You got to make sure nobody knows. You got to pretend, that you're a Christian. You got to pretend that all these other things. Meanwhile, you're operating in fear the majority of the time.
Yeah, and I think I'm hoping that we really helping somebody, because I'm sure somebody's saying, because Damien is certainly agreeing with us. So you've been there, done that. This thing is so dynamic. That's the word I'm looking for. The relationship with the narcissist is so dynamic, and of course, somebody's probably listening, saying, "Oh, that can never happen to me." Yeah, I said the same thing. But see, it doesn't start off like that. And man, I thought I was the slickest of the slick. You hear me? I thought I was. But I met somebody that had a slick game slicker than mine. And it was so gradual. Like my wife Tisha says, it's like boiling a frog. You put them in that lukewarm, comfortable water. And little by little, you turn that temperature up. and they so busy having a good time just splashing in that water. So by the time they realize that it's boiling, it's too late. You already cooked.
It's always
And that's how the narcissist, that's how they operate. They're very patient. And you're right. You can almost tell once you understand the personality, you can almost tell when they've already started another relationship, the way they change. They want to keep you because you're the backup plan while
right.
they set up house elsewhere. It is absolutely a wild ride with the narcissist. It
And
is.
and I know we're running out of time, but for this segment, but I want to talk about how to break this cycle. And
I'm
I've
all ears.
said a lot of stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more about it too, and you know, in this part two, because I want to talk more about the church, because why does the church allow people to stay in this kind of relationship, and what does the Bible really says about things like that? But one way to begin to break this cycle, break out of this relationship, you got to first come to understand that you're being abused.
Mm.
You got to come to understand. Sometimes it's hard to tell. I had a couple. The wife was a narcissist, and I mean, she was controlling him to the max. You know, you can't have a Jezebel without an Ahab. And so I said, "Man, wake up!" I mean, I just wanted to slap him. You know, he just could not understand you being abused. You own the
Mm.
business. She has the money. She has it in 4 different bank accounts. Her children hates her. You don't lost one child because of it. You know, when are you going to realize? You know, you had to jump out your window to keep from getting beat up. Uh, when are you going to realize that you're being abused?
Mm.
And so most people don't. You know, it's hard for them to come to that understanding. But once you recognize you've been abused, you need to begin to set boundaries. You know, and also to go through your things, they'll go to your, you know, they go to your room, they'll go to your finances, you know, they'll do everything. If you don't put up, unless you say, hey, stop, you have to begin to set boundaries. Keep your guard up, you know, with knowing when they're coming, you know, knowing, you know, this, how they act, know how to behave, but keep your guard up. And don't accept promises. When they come talk to you and say, I'm going to do this better, I'm getting medication, and no, demand action. You know, if you love me, you know, you don't need to be doing it. You don't need to be abusing me. You don't need to be hitting on me. You don't need to be, you know, cheating on me. You don't need to be doing all these things. Hey, I want some action. And more importantly, you know, get some help. Some of the hardest thing to do, and I find out when I'm counseling people, is in couples, is for them to acknowledge, hey, I need some help. I mean, I was in the middle of one session. I'm sitting there listening to the guy just rattle off, and I just, you know, normally as a counselor, you know, you try to ease into it. But then I turn around and say, hey, I looked at the woman and said, how long are you going to put up with this? You know, she's like, what? I said, yeah, this guy is not good for you. And, you know, and finally, and one of the other things is be ready to walk away unannounced. You know, you may not, you may have to leave, you know, don't sit there and I'm about to leave you because, you know, it can get rough there. But you may have to leave unannounced. You know, find a place where you can go, you know, get a style shelters. You know, for men, hey, you can just get up and go sometime, but you know, you don't leave your responsibility for your children or things like that. But you may have to, once you get help, you may have to just come out of there because you know, they don't like to let go. They don't like to let go. And even though, you know, they may want you to, they don't value you, they don't want anybody else around you. So these are some of the things that you have to do to make a decision to break that cycle, or you'll find yourself over and over. And I know people who've been in a relationship for over 30 years
Mm.
and never walk away because the church tell them not to, their friends tell them not to. They don't know, you know, where to go to for help, and then they'll stay in there. And sometimes that relationship can even end in death. Most narcissists are not really violent, super violent. They may just knock you around just enough to scare you, you know. But there's been a few times, you know, but you know, the whole idea of fear, manipulation, everything that the devil uses, you know, for the believer.
You know, just recently, I was dealing with a little bit of that, and there are some people who are church hurt, and that was the reason for the church hurt. It was I came to the pastor or one of the leaders because I was in this abusive relationship, And I'm not sure whether it was out of ignorance that the leader sent them back into the relationship, or it was because the leader was themselves an abuser. I'm not sure why. Or maybe they had a misinterpretation of the Bible. I guess you could classify that as ignorance also. But that has happened. If you got people who they mad at the entire church because of that experience in their particular church with their particular leader. And so let me say this to church leaders. We're not experts in everything. And don't think it's strange or think it's a weakness because you have to refer your people out to areas of expertise. You may not be able to handle every situation that's going on in your ministry. And so don't give bad advice out of ignorance. Try to get your people to somebody who has some expertise in the area where they're having trouble so they can get whole and get healed. That's what we want. I'd rather not be right, but get them to somebody who is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. This is one of the difference between pastoral counseling versus, biblical or, certified counseling. And a lot of times pastors, they counsel based on their experience.
Mm-hmm.
But they may never experience some of the things or have the training to recognize some of the things that someone who's taken counseling, like I have. I have a master in counseling. I got a doctor, PhD in biblical counseling. So I even know how to take it from a biblical perspective, to a natural perspective as well. So a lot of times when you have this kind of relationship, your pastor may not be the best person to go to. I'm a pastor. I'm just telling you.
Right.
So and many people have been hurt because the pastor. That's why I say I want to talk about on Monday. When next time we do this, that I want to be able to talk about it because pastors have kept people in these relationships and harmed a lot of people because they just want to read one scripture and they don't really understand. You need to make sure you talk to someone and also be aware of the social programs that they're available to you within your particular county, within your particular city. There are programs available to you to help you walk out of this thing. The church may not be the best person to go to. I just want to make sure you understand that and try to find a safe place.
I'm so glad that they hearing a pastor say that. That's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show.
Well, I'm a pastor, but I'm a counselor. Matter of fact, our counseling service is Transforming Thoughts, counseling services. And I think I sent you the information. You want to put it out there, our website. We do Zoom, counseling. And this is one of the areas that I specialize in because I've been there, and I know how to recognize it. So, I help a lot of people that, call in for counseling that are going through, this kind of relationship. I also help with other things too as well, but it's good to have someone that can speak for the knowledge would have a training and knowledge. At the same time, also have that biblical perspective too as well.
Amen. Dr. Jones, I thank you for your time. Hey, listen, those of you, I know some of you came in maybe right in the halfway mark. I suggest that you go back and look at the entirety of these 45 minutes or so that you can pick up something. If you have questions or comments, please go back, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram, however you caught it, and add your comments or your questions. And I'll make sure that those comments and questions get to Dr. Jones. And I'm going to go back and grab his website information. I'm going to attach that to the comments. Right here, you can see it, Transforming Thoughts Counseling Service, so that if you need his area of expertise when it comes to these relationships, and listen, he can help you with a whole wide variety of things, all right? He is a true man of God. The one thing I do love about Dr. Jones, tremendous wide scope of education, credentials here and there and everywhere, but he has not lost his personal touch with people. Some people have spent so much time in the schoolhouse that they've lost touch. This is true now. Dr. Jones has not lost touch. And that's what I love about him. You can call him and still have a real conversation, right? And everybody have problems. Don't you think just because you wear a collar or because you have an executive title or because you make X amount of dollars a year, whatever the situation, don't think that you're going to be looked at strange because you have a problem. All of us have problems. Let me tell you. And he can't tell the names, but he can nod. All of us got some problems, all right? Some of the folks he counseled would knock your socks off. All of us have problems. So don't think that yours are so bad that you can't get help. Us holding that stuff in is part of the problem. Get help. That's one of the points that Dr. Jones made. Get help. Okay? You know you're in trouble. You know that relationship is horrible. You know that you're hurting. Get help. All right? All right. We thank God for you, Dr. Jones. Once again, if y'all have questions that maybe we didn't answer here, you can definitely go back and you can put them in the chat. We're going to do our best to help you. Hey, Damien, we thank you for being an active part of this. Oh, man, there she is, my Aunt Teresa. God bless you. I'm glad you were in the audience. So listen, y'all go back, look at the entirety of what we did here tonight. Hit us up with your questions and comments. Remember, this is part 1. Part 2 is coming the first Monday in February. Part 2, this was a special edition of This Love Thing. Part 2 is going to come on our regular time slot, first Monday, February, 8 p.m. Look forward to it. All right, we look forward to seeing y'all. Remember, we're going to be back tomorrow night preaching at the place. Pastor L. Tremaine Lacey is going to come lay a word down on our theme for this year out of John 14:6, Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life. So looking to see y'all back tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Come on, get a midweek word to help you through the week. All right, we'll see you then. Thank you, Dr. Jones. We appreciate it. All right, we'll see y'all later. Bye-bye for now.
All right, God bless you.